HJ2, reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections, and there are 4 floor amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator McDougal, the senator from Hanover.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I ask that the 4 floor amendments be taken in a block and the reading of all 4 be waived.
Without objection, the McDougal amendments, the 4 amendments, are now in a block. Shall the reading of the floor amendments be waived? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The reading of the floor amendments in the block are waived. Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I would tell the body that these are the same amendments we saw yesterday, so I won't belabor the point, but I will remind the body that this is an opportunity for us to come together where we can all agree, Republicans and Democrats, that if you have been convicted of a non-violent felony, then we can agree that your rights should be restored. Examples of that would be a larceny conviction, a drug conviction, destruction of property convictions, things that are not violent. Madam President, this amendment also places the rights of victims in the highest order, ensuring that victims who have had a loss, whether through medical loss or property loss or some other loss, that they would be made whole before the perpetrator of that loss had their rights restored. Madam President, it would also say that if there still is a path for a violent felon to have their rights restored, but that path would ensure that a governor reviews their records and makes the determination that that individual could also serve on a jury. So, Madam President, as we go through this process, there's the opportunity for us to agree on the vast majority of individuals who have been convicted of felonies, and we would hope that the body would adopt this amendment.
The senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Madam President and colleagues, I would ask that you reject this amendment to House Joint Resolution 2. As stated yesterday, this is designed to torpedo the process and prevent the amendment from moving forward. And for those reasons, I ask that you reject it.
The question is, shall the McDougal floor amendments be accepted? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. No. The floor amendments are rejected. Senator Rouse, the junior senator from Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Madam President. As Chair of Privileges and Elections, I believe the senator from Hampton has the identical Senate version of House J2, so I'll yield the floor to the senator from Hampton.
Again, the senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that HJ2 be agreed to, and speaking to that.
The senator may continue.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. I present to you House Joint Resolution 2, which is not new to you or those who are here in person or virtually. We've heard it before. House Joint Resolution 2 is the second reference to a constitutional amendment addressing the qualification of voters, the right to vote, and who is entitled to vote in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This amendment provides that every person who meets the qualification of voters set forth in the Constitution of Virginia shall have the fundamental right to vote in the Commonwealth, and that such right shall not be abridged by law. During a period of incarceration for a felony conviction, a person cannot vote. However, as stipulated by this amendment, upon release from incarceration for that felony conviction, without any further action being required, that individual will be invested with all political rights, including the right to vote. This amendment also provides that A person who has been adjudicated by a court of competent jurisdiction as having the capacity to understand the act of voting as prescribed by law is also entitled to vote. Madam President, if I might, let me explain what this amendment is not about. It is not about election interference or restitution, lack of voter ID laws, or 45 days of early voting. All of this we've heard as reasons for not to support the amendment. This amendment does not negate one having to pay restitution. Let's address the reality of Virginia being an outlier with restoration of voting rights and ignoring voting as a fundamental right of democracy. Taking away a person's right to vote who has been convicted of a felony has never been about punishing people who committed a crime. It was and remains an overt and intended effort to block Black people from voting. If that is in doubt, just read the debates at the 1902 Constitutional Convention. The delegates' avowed goal was to purify the ballot, and felony disenfranchisement was proven to be their most impactful method then, and it continued to be a proven method of keeping folks away from the ballot box. When felony disenfranchisement was incorporated in the post-Reconstruction 1902 Constitution, alongside poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses, it was just one tool designed to stop as many Black people from voting as possible. Black codes ensured that a disproportionate number of Black people would be criminalized and felonized. It is beyond dispute that felony disenfranchisement was and is as Jim Crow as poll taxes. In the post-civil rights era, it remains a vestige of Jim Crow that lingers. The question we should be asking ourselves is, why are we talking about giving something back that should never have been taken away in the first place? The right to vote is an essential currency of democracy. Withholding it from hundreds of thousands of Virginians makes a mockery of any pretense that we are a commonwealth seeking to right past wrongs and make reparation for past injustices. Voting is the cornerstone of our democracy, yet there is no guaranteed right to vote in the Virginia Constitution. The right to vote should not be subject to the whims of the government and should not be taken away for any reason. It is time we made clear that the right to vote is basic to citizenship, the main building block of civic life, and it belongs to the people, not the government they elect. Permanently taking away the right to vote for people convicted of felonies started in the Jim Crow era as a way to keep Black people from voting. It's a racist policy that still haunts Virginia today, as 1 in 7 Black people in Virginia can't vote because of felony disenfranchisement. Attorney and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, Brian Stevenson, once said that each of us is more than the worst thing we have ever done. Yet we continue to punish people forever, despite them having paid their debt to society. Taking responsibility and paying one's debt to society while some have not for their actions warrants passage of this amendment. The Virginia General Assembly should pass a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to vote for every citizen and Virginia resident over the age of 18. And with that explanation, Madam President, I ask that we support HJ2 and agree to the amendment.
Senator Suderline, the senator from Roanoke.
Madam President, if I may speak briefly.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate our senator from Hampton, our chair of rules, passionate speech. Just a few things to provide some perspective on. The 1902 Constitution was terrible. I think I've criticized that a whole lot of times, but this predates that. This is something that has been around since the very early of the Republic. Well, we were still experiencing several of the terrible things with slavery and also outright voter suppression that prevented folks of Black folks from being allowed to register to vote or participate. And so the only folks that were affected by this would have been white males. And it was done so at the time because it was believed that if someone commits a serious enough crime, they should not be allowed to participate in this until, restitution has been made. That's why there was a process in the governor. We all seem to agree that it should not be automatic that you get all your rights restored. There's nothing in this bill that says you receive your rights back to firearm ownership, because we all seem to agree that perhaps we should be deliberate in that process. And so I appreciate the passion. I think that Governor McDonald did a great job on this issue and bringing a lot of folks back into political participation through his reforms. I think that Governor Northam and Governor McAuliffe continued that, sometimes I think in ways that were not as deliberate. And I appreciate those efforts, though. And so I would just wish to speak to that, Madam President. I want to make it very clear that when we say we want to restore folks to full citizenship, I don't see anything in here that restores the firearm ownership. And I think it's because we all agree that that's something that should be deliberate. And I think that's why this has been here since early in the Republic. Thank you, Madam President.
Again, the senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Madam President, this is not about passion. This is about someone who was a victim of voter suppression, just simply because I'm an African American. But I do believe I stated that the amendment stipulates, upon release from incarceration for felony conviction without any further action being required, an individual will be invested with all political rights, including the right to vote. And with that, Madam President, I ask that the amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall House Joint Resolution 2 be agreed to? Those in favor of that motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 18.
Ayes 21, noes 18. House Joint Resolution 2 is agreed to.